All right, welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder. And today I have a special guest coming all the way from Eastvale, California. So this time I'm going to do things a little bit different. Usually I have somebody in the construction and real estate field, but I want to bring you guys value in a different way. And that's why I have this guest on. I want to talk about some podcasting. So he's a registered nurse with almost a decade in the healthcare industry. He's a media personality, serial hobbyist, a speaker, an aspiring entrepreneur. He is also the host of the Parables podcast, which is now in over 45 countries, and a top 100 podcast on iTunes. Unbelievable in just a short period of time. He is also a friend of mine, and I guarantee for a fact you will hear and see a lot more of this guy in the future. Ejay Cruz, welcome to The Real Build. Thanks for coming on.
Bill, I appreciate you having me on the podcast, man. It's a true honor. And again, dude, thank you so much, man, for the opportunity.
No, I appreciate you coming on, man. We've crossed paths a few times. We've talked about it. So, and like I just said, I wanted to do this one a little bit different. Usually I'm talking construction, real estate, but I want to talk with you more about the power of podcasting and why we both are doing it. I want to discuss, our overall missions, our overall goals with it, and still deliver value, to the customer, like I always do on every single episode. Because you were one of the ones that brought me into the podcast field. You helped me out a lot. It's so powerful. Your message gets out there. There's so much more that I want to teach people too about my industry, and you're doing it big time, man. Like yours is blowing up, and it's awesome to see. So happy to have you on.
I appreciate it, man. And you know what? Before we start, Bill, I just want to take the time to congratulate you and commend you for starting this podcast because you did reach out to me, and we got your podcast going, and I appreciate that a lot because I've helped a lot of people in regards to podcasting, but there's only a few that are actually doing it and really harnessing its power.
Mm-hmm.
And to see you and how far you've come, and you're staying consistent, man. It is really admiring to see. And I know you'll probably speak on it on this episode of how it's contributing to your success and the value that you're providing to your audience. And again, I'm just glad to see somebody who I shared wisdom with is actually using it, man. So congrats again, man.
Nah, man. Yeah, you've helped me quite a bit. So yeah, it's an honor to have you on too. And I'm happy to have you on too, because going a different angle from what I've been doing on the construction side and real estate side of thing, because I have a lot of people in the real estate business and in the construction business that listen to my show, and maybe this will allow them to, learn to get into podcasting and see and harness the power of it too, man, because it's huge. Like, in consistency, yeah, it's hard. We're all busy. You're busy. I'm busy. But it's like you said to me in the beginning, you got to be consistent. You got to just find the time to do it. That's it.
And I think, when it comes to different, like you said, you have a very specific industry that that this podcast is dedicated to. But I think it's very, very important to know that everyone who's listening out there is the fact that just because someone is in a different industry does not mean that you cannot learn from that person or, the industry that they're in. There's a lot of principles and a lot of practices that can be used, in all different forms. So just because, I know we're going to be talking about podcasting, and I'm sure a lot more in regards to networking, social media, exposure, and branding, but that is a very those are multiverse subjects right there. So I think it's, again, I commend you for actually taking this angle, because again, I feel like a lot of people will definitely get value out of it.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. So the way I like to get started just diving into this whole thing is asking about your background. So let's talk about who is Ejay Cruz.
Sure. So, just to keep it short, I'm a registered nurse for 10 years. I'm currently a registered nurse manager. I oversee 2 hospitals here in Southern California. Kind of got molded into it, truthfully. It was kind of never really my passion, but being raised in a Filipino family, lots of nurses, right? So I got molded into it. Definitely do not take away anything from the career. It's taught me a lot. It's given me the house I have now. But basically, about maybe my 6th or 7th year into the profession, I definitely started to kind of lose the drive and the enthusiasm. And I do have like this entrepreneur spirit and just this blood in me kind of runs in the family a little bit as well. And I started just putting myself out there. You know, I always knew that I'm great with people. I love networking. I love meeting new people. I love conversations, which kind of speaks into why I became a podcaster, right? But I think I kind of implemented that, and I learned that with my practice as a nurse, right? Because I'm meeting new patients daily, and so I started to just put myself out there, starting, listening to podcasts, reading books, attending groups, being a member of committees, being that stranger that in a foreign group, and it's brought me and led me to meet people, remarkable people such as yourself, being in the RTA syndicate. And now I am. It's just crazy. Within the past 2 years, I would say, definitely been getting a lot of opportunities, a lot of exposure as a result of the podcasting and the results of the networking, doing some small business investing, some media consulting, and I have a lot of great things lined up for 2020. But right now, a lot of my work, my recognized work, is this podcast called The Parables. It's a passion of mine, and we're going to dive into it very shortly. It's just been an amazing experience and platform to meet new people, to connect with people. It's just to be a resource. It's just been incredible, man.
Well, what's amazing about it too is you coming from a nursing background and then, you know, just kind of shifting and going into podcasting and meeting all these people and just advancing you and your brand as a person too, so people know who EJ Cruz is. Obviously you meet different people in the hospital and so on, but I mean, with what you've done, and I mean, you have talked about this a little bit too, whether you get into real estate or whatnot, but what you have done is, I mean, you've kind of put yourself on a path to whatever you decide you want to do. You have that network. I mean, you can get into real estate, you can get into any profession, and you
Yeah.
have this big platform that you've already developed all these different networks of people and so on, that you can go anywhere. The sky's the limit, which is amazing.
No,
So
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's been a result of a couple of things. One is just obviously the podcast, and then, like I said, joining some networks and some communities. But I think it's also been a result of just building relationships. I've never kind of been the type to always and burn the bridges with people. I've
mhm.
I've always known that the importance and the emphasis of maintaining contact and having good relationships with people, because you just never know, right? I'm sure that happens a lot in real estate too. You never know who you might come across again that you
Mhm.
be doing like a joint venture with, or a joint I don't know, a joint project with. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think a big part of it, and this is something I preach all the time with some of the past speaking engagements I have done, is really just maintaining and building those relationships again. So
Yeah, no, I highly agree, because I mean the relationships that you're building by doing this too. I mean that's what's worth everything.
yep,
Obviously you want to deliver the value to their audience too and help people. That's worth everything too. But just meeting the people that you're having on your show too, it brings almost a long term relationship with them, to where you can call or text them anytime and they're somewhere else in the country. I mean, I can travel to California, you can come to Florida. I'd be like, yeah, so let's hang out, stay over if you want. You get a place. So I mean, it's just crazy, man. Like the network and everything that's built off of it too. So let's discuss you a little bit more, just so people can get their background. How did you get started in nursing? Just to learn a little bit more about you. What was your reason?
yeah. So I have this very interesting story when it comes to that. So like I said, I was kind of molded into the profession. Basically, my mom, who was a registered nurse for 30 years and has retired already, she bribed me. I think what she basically did was, I was very involved with school in high school, to the point where I think she got so sick and tired of driving me. I was in associate student body, I was in basketball, you name it. And I think she finally just her and my dad just came to a consensus that, hey, they came up to me and said, hey, EJ, you know what, we're gonna get you. I'm 15 years old, student,
Yeah.
driver's permit, right? And they basically said, hey, EJ, you know what, we're gonna get you a car, like a used Honda, but if we do this, you need to take up nursing. And being the young guy I am, I'm just kind of like, okay, like I car, you know what I mean? And little did I know, man, that would change my world, because when I finally got into the nursing profession, oh man, it was probably one of the hardest things in my life that I ever had to endure, being that I didn't come from a medical background. Usually when you go into a medical profession, you have some sort of background, whether you were a nurse's aide or even if you just took something simple like medical terminology. Dude, I didn't take any of that. So I went in there, one of the few males, because it's a female-dominated profession, and one of the youngest. I think I was like the second youngest person. I graduated when I was 23, so I was like 21 years old. I was 21. I know I was 21. Yeah, and I got slaughtered, man. I got slaughtered, but academic probation for I think 3/4 of the program, but eventually I came up on top. I graduated. I passed my license the first time, and now I got the life I have now. And it's crazy looking back at it, because even though I'm going through this transition of trying to get out of it because I'm pursuing entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
I look back and I'm very thankful, because
Mm-hmm.
what I recognize now, is the fact that I, and we're going to talk about this too, some of the commonalities I've learned from my podcast guests, right? The story you usually hear is like someone drops whatever the heck they're doing and they go all in on their passion or their business.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I have a very different, unique situation where I have a very stable career, and I am able to use some of that money to fund my business. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not something I could just kind of drop because I have health benefits, I have a wife, I have this home. It's
Yeah,
just not
yeah,
something I could just like kind of drop and be like, oh, I'm going to go in on entrepreneurship. That's not I wouldn't have
yeah.
my wife
Sorry,
would,
honey. Sorry.
yeah, my wife would divorce me. Exactly. So, yeah, I have a unique situation. And, even though I find times that's hard for me because, again, I've been doing it for 10 years. I was in healthcare when the Obamacare got into place, the demands of healthcare and the different chronic illnesses, and it's just getting harder. And once I got into management, especially with the politics and
Mm.
the budgeting and all that stuff, it kind of threw everything we learned in nursing school out of the window. And the fact that we were taught to be patient advocates, but then when you get into management, it's more about politics and money. So that's where I kind of started to get a little disconnection with the profession. Again, I don't take away nothing from it because it is what made me who I am today and the life
Mm-hmm.
I have now. But like I'm a serial hobbyist. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but I am just very spontaneous. Like I'm very passionate, driven to the fact that whatever excites me and I know I could add value to and contribute to, I would love to be involved with it. So that's kind of how I feel now. And I'm in a unique position with my podcasting and my network. It's just anything I come across, if I feel I could add value to it, I want to be a part
Mm-hmm.
of it. I want to be like kind of like that guy who's like who's like a partner of like multiple companies and different industries. Like just that guy, So yeah, man.
I mean, it's a great trait to have too. And I mean, going off of what you just said too, with your medical, doing what you're doing and being involved in nursing too. I mean, you've learned probably a lot doing what you're doing. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And that's kind of, it's no different than with me, like growing up, I sold cars for when I was 20 years old. And I mean, I learned so much doing that. I mean, I never saw myself being a full-time car salesman. You see the guys with the slick back hair. No offense to car salesmen, but you know, it's crazy, man. Like the things that you do to begin, start out, it's going to project you to where you want to be too. And you have so many different platforms that you can go through now, meeting the people that you're meeting, whether it's fitness, real estate, uh, that is something with the medical field. I mean, the sky's the limit with you, like I said, which is awesome, man. So, and being that, having that trait that you just talked about too. I mean, it's rare, and to have that trait too, that's just gonna push you, like I said in the intro too. You're gonna be known. One day you're definitely gonna be known. I know that people are
I
gonna see
appreciate
you
it.
everywhere. So especially with that podcast blowing up. So
I appreciate it.
um so I want to, about like, so let's go deeper into with the parables too, and the beginning of that and how you started. Let's talk about, why you decided to, let's go deeper into why you decided to jump into podcasting in the arena. And I mean, you talked about it obviously, but when was the moment where you just said, I got to start a podcast? And how did the parables come at,
Yeah.
into fruition?
Yeah. So again, during my I guess my 6th or 7th year in the nursing profession, again I started to realize that I definitely don't I want more, and I want to pursue my real passions. You know what I mean? So I started putting myself out there, starting to get in, join communities and networks and things like that. And really, I mean, I don't have like some crazy story of how it all happened. I really just did the most cliche thing and wrote down what I knew I was good at. And again, that was people, that was building relationships and having conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something about people I love, man. I don't know what it is. I'm a man of energy, and I talk about that a lot. And it's kind of funny. I always feel like I'm a weird person when I talk about energy, but I just love talking to people and having a good time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote that. I wrote all those things down that I knew I was good at, or what I think I was good at, right? And I just happened to come across the podcast platform. I was like, okay, it's relatively new. And I stumbled across a few podcasts that I was fans of, and and these were like guest podcasts too that they were filming, which I thought was very unique because podcasting is usually just audio, and
Mm-hmm.
people like me and you, for instance, though we were doing visual,
Mm-hmm.
we're adding
Which
visual
is huge, yeah.
aspects to this, which is huge, exactly. So I took a leap of faith, man. I just again, being a serial hobbyist, like I'm that type of guy who will try something, and usually I'll stick with it for maybe a year or two. And I think came to a point where I just got fed up. I told myself, you know what? If I actually do one more thing, I want to make sure I go all in and actually go longer than like a year or two. Almost like my cars, dude. If you knew me with my cars, bro, I don't know why I finance all of them. I should lease them because I go through a different car like every 2 to 3 years.
See, I
So
sold. See, I sold cars. That me being a ex car, so I'd tell you, you need a lease. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's what happened with podcasting. I told myself, you know what? I want to go in on this. So I mean, like you guys see it right now. For those of you who are watching, I mean, what I basically did was I came up with a plan of what I wanted with my podcast, and then for those of you who are thinking about doing a podcast, take note of this. Is I really looked into it. Okay, I told myself, okay, what am I going to talk about, right? And then who's my target audience, right? And those are like two of the number one things you need to know first
Oh
before
yeah.
you even start podcasting, before your name, before your cover art, all that stuff. You need to know what you're going to talk about and then who your audience is. So I started compiling all that. And dude, I got to tell you again, guys, registered nurse background. I'm not no sound engineer. I don't know anything about videography. I have a lot of equipment here. All I know is like record and stop. Like, I'm not joking, guys. So it was crazy because I'm very particular and very selective and detailed sometimes. So I was having a hard time buying the equipment, right? Because I got the cousin in my ear telling me, I give him the idea, and he's like, EJ, you need to buy this, buy that. And it comes out to like a $10,000 like setup. Then I got the very resourceful friends are just like, EJ, you could do it for free. You just, have like a headset, earphones with a mic on it, and you could just upload it for free. So a part of me is kind of like, and I think everyone has to come to this decision eventually, and you have to do what best serves you. But to me, because I knew I was going to go in all on this. And second, I knew that this is my brand and this is like a reputation and my image, that I knew that I had to invest some money into this. Like, you know what I mean? There has to be a
Yeah.
sense of one side being mediocre and then the other side being like, okay, he spent some quality time with this stuff, right? I'm a huge believer in regards to there's two things you can't take back. One is time, and the second one is first impressions, right? So if I put out a podcast episode with terrible, terrible quality, I could lose potential audience
Mm-hmm.
members, right? So basically, what I'm trying to say is I put a little money into it, and the rest is history, man. Like the money I put into it, thank God I did. And I put that money like towards the microphones because now these microphones, I don't even have to edit most of my audio. It's just clean when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, man, the rest is history. It's been a wild ride. I mean, I'm gearing up for 2020, but within the year, like you said, everything that in the intro, as far as its success, where it's been able to reach as far as countries, the exposure, it's been pretty. It's been a blessing, man. Like a lot of people are resharing it, or it's organic growth, and it's evolved, Bill. Like
Mm-hmm.
it went from let's see what I'm good at, and let's try to make it into a hobby or something like maybe I could tap into. Now it's kind of like, wow, it's hitting all these countries. People are reaching out to me, telling me how impactful it is, how it's impacting their lives. So now I kind of went from this sort of hobby to now an obligation with the mission to be,
Yeah.
to add value and bringing wisdom to the world, I guess you could say. So yeah, it's been a wildfire, man, for sure.
I mean, it's spot on though. Like with consistency, that's the biggest part about it. Is how many people you could actually reach, and then how many people do reach out to you and say, "Hey, man, I listened to your episode. It was awesome. I learned a lot too." And that's my goal with this whole thing too, in the construction end of this whole thing is just teaching people what to look for when buying, building, selling a house, before, prior. It's not all about the price. There's so many factors in the building industry that's just nobody knows about. I mean, I deal with it every day in my industry where everybody's just looking at a number, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And it's just such a powerful thing too. And yeah, man, it's great. And for you to do what you're doing and reach out to the people that you're reaching out to and helping, and I mean, because I listen to your stuff all the time and I've learned from yours too. I mean, some of these guys that are in the business, when you had Andy Dane Carter on, I've had him on mine thanks to, you hooking that, me and you talking about that. But I mean, I learned so much from him too, talking to him. And then it's just the connections that you can make off of those people too, is what's pretty amazing about it. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So let's real quick, how'd you come up with the parables?
Yeah, so again, no crazy story. So for those of you who are not familiar with the parables, it's basically a podcast where I have a solo segment too, but the original segment was where I bring on amazing, impactful people who are doing some pretty incredible stuff, and we sit down, just have conversations about their story and everything leading up to where they are today, from high profile entrepreneurs who are massive, super successful, to local community heroes that are making an impact within their cities. And I always told myself, I said, well, if we're going to be talking about kind of like their story, I straight up went on thesaurus.com. I put in story, and the parables came up. And I was like, man, that is it right there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And well, so there's a lot of religious ties to that if you look it up with the parables to Jesus Christ. But I knew when I picked the name, I kind of didn't want it to be the typical, the so and so show. You get what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah,
EJ
yeah, yeah.
show. I wanted it to be catchy, and I kind of looked at it from a branding perspective too. But it just like I just knew, like once I saw that on thesource.com, I made sure that it wasn't trademarked because like I said, I was going to go all in. I knew like I was going to go deep with this, and it was good to go as far as the podcasting world. So yeah, that's how I got it.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So let's discuss, going off of that, let's discuss podcasting, YouTube, and the power of social media. Just briefly explain, to how somebody can, because you've helped me with this big time, how somebody can start a podcast, and just go through it briefly. maybe a YouTube channel too, like me and you have, and also build their social media as well. Obviously, you looking at your social media, you built it pretty quick, especially with the parables and so on. So just some strategies on that, to deliver some value on that.
Absolutely. So I want to give a little insight real quick before we go into that. Obviously, there's no question that if you are a brand or business, it's very, very important that you stay relevant and you gain exposure, right? Because otherwise, you're just going to be left behind, especially in this digital world. So, in regards to a brand or business, obviously there is a lot of incredible media platforms out there, right? We have social media. There's photography, videography, with YouTube. There's podcasting and things like that. So for me, I always knew that I wanted to stay with it, at least be with some of the top media platforms out there. And I knew podcasting was definitely on the rise, and of course YouTube, because videos are it right now.
Mm-hmm.
The video content, and social media, of course, because who doesn't use social media? And so in regards to podcasting, to start off with that, just to give everybody a little insight, because I did do a little speaking engagement on this in an article. Podcasting is, even though it's very, very trendy right now, it is without a doubt in the premature stages still. It is still in its infancy. And that, to give you guys a little insight, there was a recent study that came out, and it basically showed that there is approximately about 500 million blogs out there. And I'm going to get to that in a second. And then in addition, about approximately 500 million YouTube channels. But when it came to podcasting, there was actually only about 1 million. So 500 to 1, 500 million to 1 million. Yeah, that is crazy, right? And what's crazy, not a lot of people know this, but podcasting actually used to be called audio blogging. So what a lot of experts are saying is, in fact, podcasting is the new blogging. But podcasting is very, very powerful in the fact that you could repurpose the content. So for instance, this episode, it's obviously being filmed, so we could use it for video footage. Obviously with the audio, it could be uploaded to multiple podcasting channels for streaming. In addition to that, you can repurpose the whole episode into a blog. So and then in addition to that, because me and you come from two different worlds, the leveraging of each other's audience is another bonus. So as you can see, there's a lot of room to multi-purpose this stuff. And, podcasting, again, to give you some insight as well, it is just blowing up in regards to, there are even top talent agencies that are telling, and you see it, there's so many celebrities now coming out with their own podcasts. And the reason why is podcasting is being invested in by big, huge companies. Acquisitions are going on behind the scenes. A lot of advertisers are getting into play. A lot of money is being spent on that. As regards to celebrities, it helps them with exposure. It helps them stay relevant, but it also helps them engage with their fans even more than social media. So a lot of top talent agencies are telling them, like, hey, you need to start a podcast. No ifs, no buts. You need to start a podcast. And it just continues to rise. In fact, it's still so new to the point that even when we touch to in regards to revenue, as far as monetizing it, there's still innovative, creative ways to monetize podcasting. And even I'm finding out about this. But again, podcasting is still very, very new. I think if you get into it, like now, it's like a sweet spot. Even within like the next year or two, I still think, you'll be in the game at a very good time. I think right now is definitely the sweet spot. So thank God for me and you, right? In regards to social media, of course, I mean, it's a no-brainer that you need to be on it. If you're not utilizing social media, you're missing out on a lot of leads, a lot of connections. I know, for instance, with myself, I've actually been able to connect with some amazing people who've been on my podcast who are now lifelong friends. People I'm actually, and in addition to that, future projects that I have with, just through social media. And all it took was just one comment and one like. And it's crazy how that works, because what happens is, if I have a friend and he posted something and I comment, and then one of his friends comments on mine. It made me curious to look at that guy's, you know, IG profile. And just because I know he is friends with, my other friend, it kind of gave me, it kind of endorses him already. So it's just kind of weird how like that connection happens. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And in regards to DMs, cold calls, and doing all that stuff, it's just you got to be on social media, man.
Oh
I
yeah.
understand from all my real estate buddies, they've they've been able to sell a lot of property just through real estate and generate leads through that way as well. And I'm sure you could speak on that.
Yeah, I'm big with it. I mean, and it's with like even I do a ton of video, and I mean, I may not get the likes, because but people see it, because mostly the time with video, people aren't really hitting a like button too often. They're mainly you're just going for the views. But I get it all the time where I'll see somebody and they'll be like, "Yeah, I saw your video, or I saw your house tour, or it was great, this and that," or yeah, I love your podcast. I listen. And it's just optimize, putting all this into different formats. Like I have an emailer every month. Well, this content, what me and you are doing right now, this can be a segment of that newsletter. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it's just in my newsletter compared to other realtors that I see, because I get their newsletter. I mean, it's like hands down and crushes their newsletters because I got
Yeah.
so much content and video from doing this and all the listings that I walk through. And I like to show people, with video because it's so powerful and social media is so powerful. I just post it. I don't even care. I just post it. I'll look at it here and there, but I'll just let it roll because I know somebody's going to see it. I got a guy, quick story. I got a guy that works for me, and I've been telling him, you got to post on social media. You got to post on social media. So we sold a house together. He finally posted something about the house. I've been posting for a while about houses. So he finally does, adds it to his story. Somebody messages him off the post saying they got a lot next door that they want to list.
Oh my
So,
God. See?
I'm like, I've been telling you to post. See, that's the power right there of social, that guy found him through traction, through, the whole social media of everything, through people commenting and so on. And it was organic too. He didn't spend a dime.
Yeah.
And then that's a 200 something $1,000 lot listing. So it's crazy how powerful it is, man. And it's consistency too, like we talked about on everything. If you're consistent on like Instagram, like you are, and I'm in LinkedIn, I'm doing a lot more LinkedIn stuff,
Same.
but it's constantly being consistent, even with the podcasting too. It's huge because
Yeah.
guess what's getting out there? Your name. Nobody else is really in my area. Nobody else is really doing it. So I'm just going to keep on doing it. And the more you do it, the more you're going to stand out.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I want to add on to that because I understand there's a lot of people who are like, it's a full-time job. Because I ain't gonna lie, it is hard to manage, and but if you put the time into it, just kind of like you put the time into anything, you will reap the rewards and you will make an impact. In addition to that, what I have found, and from my research too, is that when you podcast, you automatically build a sense of authority. So it's kind of like as if like you wrote a book and you're an author. You have that authority, and
Hmm.
even though the numbers shouldn't matter, the reality is if I'm a real estate agent and I have 20,000 followers and I'm posting impactful, valuable stuff, and then here's another real estate agent who only has like 500 followers posting just this, maybe even the same, who's going to have the more authority? Like the reality is probably me.
Hmm.
And it's the fact that I have that. It shows in the numbers and it shows in the engagement.
Hmm.
And it helps build that trust, and it helps build that kind of that rapport, knowing that somebody's putting out this content through all the streams and all the channels. And it just makes you more credible.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
it'd be the same, it's almost like looking at a Yelp review, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I could be, and maybe for instance, like a personal trainer. To me, if there's somebody who's more engaging with the community, who's putting more content out there, maybe it's a resourceful and informative versus the other person, I'm more than likely probably going to go with that one because they're
Oh
more
yeah.
active. You know what I mean? On social media. So it's reality, unfortunately.
Well, it's like you just said too. I mean, like personal trainer example too, or even a realtor. I see a real estate agent that's talking constantly about, this and this about this house, or showcasing a property. I mean, I even showcase lots that I've listed. There's not much to show, but I showcase the area and what's around them, because you can do anything, and just constantly putting that video out there, these people are going to see you, but that's
Mhm.
going to gain that trust too.
Absolutely.
That's the main thing, is the trust factor that they're going to get, because when they go to choose prime example again, I got direct message on LinkedIn from a guy that's looking to buy a house. He'll be down here Thanksgiving break next week, and he was interviewing 3 realtors. I was one of them. He found me on LinkedIn through my video. So, and he
Yeah.
wants to buy a 3 million and up house. That's
Mhm.
the power of, social media and constantly putting stuff out there, because people see you. It's almost like they already know you,
Mhm.
and it's crazy. So whatever business you're in, that's what we're saying, people. Get on social media, start a podcast, give value, give advice about your business if that's what you want to do, or if you want to help people do something. Because, like with you, EJ, I mean, they're constantly seeing you're delivering value. I mean, the sky's the limit with you. I mean, you can get in any profession, people are going to know you because you've already built that brand too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be about, I mean, I think it's very, very important, and me, you will agree on this, that
Hmm.
you provide value. But sometimes you don't have to be like the expert of all in your industry.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just start off with just telling your story. Because again, it's going to build that trust. I mean, if there's somebody who's being more vulnerable, telling them about their story, maybe how they got into real estate
Hmm.
and journey and the things that they're dealing with, it builds a sense of intimacy. And again, it builds that trust. And because I kind of know, I feel like I know that guy versus the other guy who's kind of just a little quiet. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's where the traffic's gonna go. So
Yeah.
it's just like you said, it's powerful, man.
Well, it's a prime example too. I'll bring him up again. The guy that works for me. There's a thing on Instagram called the broke agent, and I say he's the definition of that Instagram, because I mean everything that bad happens to a realtor is, that's what the broke agent posts about, and that's this guy.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
like every time he's got a showing, somebody doesn't show up, or they buy the next unit. And it's just he's had, finally he's getting traction where he's had one after the other. It took a while because he kept just one thing. You get slapped in the face a lot in real estate, especially when you first start out. It's a very hard profession. But this
Mm.
guy, he got slapped in the face quite a few times. So, but even if he did a podcast about that too, he can get traction off of that, and it'd be actually funny. So it's just, you can do anything, like you said. That's the
Yeah.
thing too. But with that being said, I kind of want to hop into, like, we both got into podcasting because we both had a mission and, a goal, and what we wanted to deliver with our message and so on. Whether it was to help people learn from other entrepreneurs or build brand awareness, podcasts all have missions behind them. Let's discuss our mission with podcasting. So, what was your mission with the Parables podcast? You touched on it, but let's go deeper into it.
Yeah, yeah. So again, initially it started off as a kind of like a hobby or kind of like a leap of faith. Initially, I kind of wanted to see, I identified what I was good at, again, which was talking to people, meeting people, and just having that experience, engaging with them. Um, as soon as started to build a lot of a lot of traction, a lot of traffic, more downloads, as soon as I started getting more feedback, the DMs almost daily now, to and I always say this, but like an example, I've had someone tell me how it's helped them kind of take that leap of faith to pursue their passion, to another one saying that, hey, that particular episode, EJ, gave me the confidence to go into an interview. Just things like that. As soon as I started getting that feedback, because again, feedback's everything too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I my mission kind of changed a little bit. Instead of just kind of doing it for fun, then now, and I started seeing how many countries I was reaching at such a fast pace. My mission then became, and I'm kind of quoting this because it's funny because my marketing tactic is very unique in the fact that not only is it just like by word of mouth, but from merchandise from t-shirts. Like, right, I got a sweater here. So I almost feel like I have like an army of people who love the podcast, and automatically I give them a shirt. I'm like, hey, you could have this shirt. Like, this is on me. But every time they're walking, people are like, oh, you have a podcast? They're like, oh no, that's my friends. And then they ask them like, hey, what's that podcast about? So it's crazy because I've almost had to come up with like almost like an elevator pitch, especially for my wife. Because when she wears it at the gym or something, right? They're like, oh, so what's that podcast about? So I kind of have to come up with this like elevator pitch. But, you know, I like to call the parables, and I say this during like usually my intros, is I like to call it kind of like a beacon of light. It's basically like a portal for positive influence, positive energy, anything that people can take away from the conversations there, whether it's through my guest or my solo segment. Hopefully people can take away something from it, use it as, you know, whether it's in the form of knowledge, wisdom, morals, lessons, and they could take away something from it and hopefully apply in their lives and become the best version of them. And like I said, it's just, it's almost become like an obligation for me now. Like it's one of those things, I hate to sound so cliche when it comes to passion and you would do it for free type of thing, but that is the truth. But this, even though I am going to be gearing up to monetize shortly, just because of the production wise of it, but really, like, if it came down to it, I would do it for free, because I keep telling everybody who always asks me, EJ, do you make money off of it? I always tell them, like, yes, I do, but not in the form of cash.
Yeah.
Like, I make money off of it in the form of relationship, in the form of impact, in the form of network, in the form of the experience, especially the experience that I'm able to sit down with some remarkable people and they share their wisdom with me, and no one else is getting that, even off camera. Like, the stuff that you won't hear on my episodes, I'm getting that. So like I said, it's just like, it's amazing, man. And that's really the mission, man. It's to be of value to the world, man.
No, I mean, what you just said too, because anybody can pick up anything from, like, I think it was one of your recent ones. I was actually listening to it because I was going through kind of a similar state of mind where, you know, I kind of felt like, I don't know, it was just blah. I wasn't, you know, I was underproducing. I just wasn't, you know, in the right mindset and so on. And I mean, you went into it with detail, and it actually kind of brought me back too to where I need to be at you know, because us being, you know, entrepreneurs, we all want to be at a high level. And I remember you talking about this too, you know, and we're hard on ourselves too. We really are. And I listened to that episode and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of going through the same thing. I mean, I got, like I told you, I got a new puppy, dealing with that. Then I'm renovating stuff at the kitchen on top of full-time working basically 2 jobs on top of dealing with customers and so on. It's a lot. And you kind of, it'll put you in a place. I mean, you want to handle it all, but sometimes we just have to really pull back and, you know, look at what we got and be grateful too. I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, that's just it. It's very impactful. And I mean, my mission with my whole thing too, like I said, is to impact people and also to help people too, because being in the industry that I'm at, I said this before, it's one of the largest investments of your life. And there's not a lot of information out there about it at all. You know, they can look online how to pick a builder, so on. But I mean, come on, you can look online and read about it, but you're more than likely going to go with the cheaper guy or, you know, something. But showing them, you know, in real estate and in construction, and having these high end, you know, these top producing real estate agents that, you know, go above and beyond and constantly talk about that, or these top producing business people too, you know, that I've had on, that just, it's all about the client, it's all about the communication, it's all about just guiding them through the process and delivering the best product possible. That's what makes me personally want to do the same, which we always have. That's what we represent too. But meeting people and having people that represent the same thing, it's awesome, man. It really is.
You know what's interesting is the fact that when people, and this is for, hopefully everyone could really take this in, it's funny, like when you have a business, when you approach it in the sense of you're in the business of helping people, it's funny how impactful and how, you know, rewarding it could be. Not in the sense of course rewarding as fulfilling, but at the same time rewarding as in, you know, you kind of like don't have to sell as much. right? Because if you're in the business of people, you're about being authentic, you're about being of service, you're about contributing. And once you're able to do that, not only is it fulfilling, but the bonus is also, and attached to that is, again, that you have less to sell, because again, there's just that connection, there's that trust.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, and again, like in regards to podcasting, this is probably the ultimate platform to kind of establish that. And
Mm-hmm.
being that, we can only be in so many places at once, where in podcasting, we are able to stream in multiple channels. People could listen to you while they're very busy and convenient for them, whether they're walking their dog versus going to the gym, to whatever, maybe in the house. You know what I mean? And again, it's just, it's amazing when you approach that way, how rewarding it could be.
Yeah, I highly agree, man. It is truly amazing, and there's more and more people listening to podcasts every single day too. And I mean, some of my customers are older customers, and they say, "Oh yeah, I heard your podcast. It was great with that interior designer. I'm gonna take those." I was like, "Wait, what, you're listening to podcasts? Whoa, all right." You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like, all right, but it's crazy. I mean, it's just like, social media. More and more people that are older too are getting on social. It's just powerful, man. And what we can do with this and this platform, and obviously me and you with the video and everything too, and disperse it. It's just, it's priceless. I mean, that's exactly what you said. We're not getting paid to do it, but I mean, we are getting paid, and basically the connections
Mhm.
and the value that we delivered. So.
And I challenge, like, I know there's a lot of people out there, maybe whether it's like they're older or whatever. I guess it's safe to say an excuse, right, of the
Mm,
reason why they're kind of not tapping into things like podcasting, video, social media. You have to approach it. You have to approach it with a different mindset. You can't go in there and be like, oh, yeah, I'm older, I'm not like so tech savvy. It's just like anything you approach in regards to something new, a foreign territory, right? You have to approach it with an open mind and a willingness to know that there's intention behind it and there's rewards behind it too. So you know what I mean? Because there's always excuses as to why someone can't do something, especially when it comes to that, right? Maybe
mm-hmm.
the excuse you say, oh, I'm not tech savvy, I don't understand it. The fact of the matter is, I think we're living in a world now that's so digital and so advanced that we, as humans, we need to adapt anyway, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
why can't you adapt in regards to your business or the impact you're trying to make? You got to tap into that in some shape or form. So if you have that approach, I think anybody, regardless of how savvy you are, regardless of how old you are, you could definitely thrive for sure.
Well, it's like you said too. I mean, the people that don't adapt, they're going to end up being left behind. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. If you don't adapt now, especially now, because I think within the next 5 years tops, I mean, maybe even sooner, it's just a lot of people are going to be left in the dust with the old school mentality, because it's not going to work anymore, because more and
Yeah.
more people are consuming the media in all different ways too. So that's for
Yeah.
sure. Going to the next thing though, and kind of brushing off that, you've interviewed, a ton of successful entrepreneurs, and what have you learned from them? One of the biggest things. I mean, I know you've probably learned a ton.
Yeah.
So let's take some major things that you've learned, and how can we take what we learn and apply it to our own lives.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because there's been a few times I've been asked this question, and I want to give like this really crazy fancy like one pill answer, right? It's just like this, like holy crap, I got it. Like I never thought of it, but like the reality is, and I'm gonna be again very transparent with everybody. It's actually like I don't want to call it simple, but it's pretty straightforward. I mean, like I said, like you said, right? I've had some pretty successful people here, people who are forward thinkers, pioneers, industry leaders, experts in what they do, high operating people. I almost call them like bionic, like they're not human, right? I'm just like, dude, what the heck? But the more I got to know their story and their mentality and their way of thinking, the commonality is like what I've learned from them is like really three things. And I hope I could get this right. I'm writing it down here, but one is definitely is they stay consistent. We just spoke about that, right?
Hmm.
No matter what, they stayed consistent. They had a plan, they had a goal, and they attacked it with full force. And regardless of the failures that they had, they just kept going,
Hmm.
right? definitely the consistency aspect of it. The second thing I would say is probably, and this is something that I know that me and you are tapping into right now, definitely, is being resourceful. I think regardless of the conditions, the standards, the circumstances they endure, because I've had people who've come from very, very crazy beginnings, like starting from nothing and rising to the top. No, regardless of their situation, whether you came from humble beginnings versus you had like everything for you, there there was a there was always some sort of way that they were able to overcome adversity, right? And again, I think and I want to drive this point too, that sometimes as people like you said, like me and you, right? We like to be hard on ourselves because we hold ourselves to a high standard. Sometimes we like to compare our story to someone else's story,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely it's something you got to stay away from. And the fact that their story is very, very different, and their adversities and wins are a lot different than ours, and their challenges were a lot different than ours too. Like from a homeless guy with no parents versus like someone like myself who had a beautiful upbringing, right? No complaints at all. But
Mm-hmm.
I have suffered different adversity compared to that guest. So again, coming from I think that's the second thing I want to drive is like they were very, very resourceful regardless of their circumstance, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what it was. And I had some crazy ones. Like I'm just like people who should have been dead, and that hits home to me because I'm a registered nurse, right? I mean, like for instance, Marcus Anderson,
Mm-hmm.
who's a good friend of ours, right? It's just incredible what some people have been able to do to get through the adversity and thrive and doing some beautiful things now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say the last thing, a commonality of all my guests is just taking no for an answer, being relentless. I mean, I know that kind of like overlaps consistency, but some of the stories I've heard, like they didn't take no for an answer, man. They went like across the world, and they just like no matter what, they kept going until they got their yes, whatever, and in whatever shape or form that was. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think to wrap that up, consistency, being resourceful, and just not taking no for an answer, doing whatever it takes, I guess you could say, is the better way of saying it. And it's funny though, Bill, because when I've had these guests, what's crazy is not only am I learning their story and how their mentality is, but when you like, I guess you could say interview. I hate using the word interview.
Mm-hmm.
When I share these conversations with them, like in return, you start to learn a little bit about yourself a little bit,
Oh yeah.
because you get that perspective from them, right? Like that mentality and kind of like their perspective on why they were approaching it that way, or why that failure led to their new part of their journey or the new transition in their life. And you start to like kind of recap on your life yourself, and
Oh
you're
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
man, like I think that's why I'm like the way I am right now or something. So it's kind of crazy, man. Like the things you start to learn about yourself and your guests.
Yeah, I mean, all three of those points that you just hit on, everybody should use them in life. I mean, and that's life in general. If you do that, you're gonna be something no matter what. But what you just said too, I mean, everybody that I interview, or talk with too, it's like you. It's hard to say interview because it is more of a discussion. You do learn so much, but you do kind of think about yourself. All right, how can I do it this way too? Like, because especially in my industry, and talking with a lot of these guys that are in business and the construction business too, we talk about the communication, our processes together, how I do it versus how they do it, and you kind of, it helps, man. You're just like, oh, you're doing it how? Oh, I kind of want to take notes while I'm interviewing these people too, just because you're
Yeah.
learning too, and that's what this is all about, is helping people, but you're also learning yourself, and that's what makes you better at what me and you are doing, and communicating with people and communicating to our audience too. So it's big, man.
You know what's funny is that I'm gonna be very transparent with everyone who's listening to this, and Bill knows this too. But as podcast hosts, I could tell you right now, especially if we have guests, I'm telling you, it is a very. I mean, I don't want to scare nobody, right? But at the same time, it is also like I want to say challenging in the sense that when you do have a guest, not only are you trying to navigate the conversation, you're obviously trying to host the theme and everything in regards to your show or your podcast. But in addition, I'm like blown away and like you said, taking mental notes, like, holy crap, like I can't believe you know what I'm saying? So there's like, if you ever like watch me on camera, and I'm sure you feel the same way too, when people are watching like our episodes, you can kind of see like, man, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And Ejay Bill's head, like he's trying to navigate the conversation. He's trying to like think of the next question to ask him. And then he's like trying to be that fly on the wall, trying to take all that wisdom in, you know? So it's
oh no, you're
fun.
getting hit from all different directions, man. Because you know, we all have our our kind of outlines of what we're doing and so on. But just the general discussion that me and you are having right now too, because I got to listen, but I also got to go plan ahead for the next topic, and then it's tough. I mean, not to scare people away, like you said, but I mean, it's to navigate an interview, and I've gotten each and every one. I've seen myself get better with it, and the constant practice at it and doing it too. Since my first interview, I don't even know if I want to listen to my first interview. It was more
Same here, brother. Same here.
It was me asking the questions. That's about it, and then going on to the next question. It wasn't a discussion like it should be. And I mean, it's come very far, and I'm very grateful for that too. But the amount you learn, man, it's crazy. Yeah. If I had a notepad in front of me, man, that thing, I'd probably have 10 notepads in front of me after 25 episodes. So, it's crazy.
And I'm in a blessed situation right now because I don't know if I told you, I just had a podcast episode before this. I was hosting a podcast episode, and then now I'm jumping in to being the guest. So it's kind of, I always tell everybody, I'm like, dude, and for everybody who's listening to this, if you're a podcaster, it is so important that you and other podcasters network and get on each other's show. Because again, in regards to the audience, but also again, especially like me and Bill, we align with what we're trying to do, right? Our values and trying to make an impact. But to get back to what I was saying, it's always relieving because I tell everybody, like, dude, if you're a podcast host, you will know if you are invited to be a guest, just how much more relaxing it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was on one the other day, and I was like, man, this is different, man. This is nice.
Fun.
Coming from coming from the other side of things. Wow, I can get used to this, but. Let's go into, me and you brushed on value and how important it is to deliver value, no matter what you're doing and help people. I mean, that's what any business should be about, is helping people. It shouldn't just be about, money and everything. I've spoke about that a ton of times. So what are some of the topics you've talked about, or people that you had on your show that we can talk about, to bring some value to my show and my audience here? So what's some things and topics you've discussed in some of your past episodes on the parables?
Oh man, that's a hard question in the fact that
I had to hit you with it.
No, it's just hard in the fact that we've discussed so many things, but I want to say, and I'm trying to reflect back on.
Just think of one person,
Yeah,
had
dude,
a lot.
No, you know what? It's almost like I'm trying to bring it all together, like a commonality again. But I think it's just again being of value. I mean, I think right now we're living in an age, or like we're going through this transition now, where we are definitely sniffing out the bullshit. And I'm sorry, I didn't know if I was allowed to cuss on this.
No, you're fine.
Okay, sniffing out the bullshit. Yeah, no, I think we are definitely living. There's this new wave of business owners, entrepreneurs, people in general, like citizens, where we could definitely sniff out the bullshit, and we don't want anything to do with you, right? And there's a lot of good. And I forgot where I said this, but there's definitely. Oh, I actually said this on one of my podcast episodes. There is definitely a lot more good people than bad, right? And because we are a lot smarter, and I guess we could say we're more aware and more, I guess you could say, woke. There's this new wave of good people, and obviously good people can come in all shapes and forms. But in regards to business, we are able to recognize who we want to do business with, who we want to build relationships with, who we want to network with. And, if there's anything that definitely within all my podcasts that we always talk about, I will tell you though, one of the number one topics we always talk about is relationships for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Not in regards to like intimacy. I'm talking about relationships in regards to just connecting, like people coming together, whether that's in the form of a business, whether that's a form of a friendship, things like that. It's always a topic that we always talk about. And it's always a topic that's played a huge role actually in their stories. And what I will say, and we kind of brushed a little bit on this, but at least in regards to kind of my story and kind of my success as well, is that I know the relationships that I have built and stemming and keeping away from kind of the cancerous and negative people and the bullshitters out there. It is really, really leveraging and accelerating where I'm trying to go for sure.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the opportunities that are presenting to me, the circles that I'm being invited into that I'm not even asked to be invited into, but people are like, EJ's a good dude. Like he is a man of honesty. He's a man of his word. Like he's a good person to be around. And that's the type of person that you want to establish yourself with, especially if you're trying to do some pretty incredible things like make an impact, or you're trying to build a business and try to differentiate yourself from another business. You got to be that you got to distinguish yourself. And I really think that's what it is. It's like building that partnerships in those relationships and establishing that reputation of being a very honest, authentic individual.
Yeah, I mean, that right there was huge. That was big because, I mean, it's plain and simple. Good people want to be around good people,
Absolutely.
And good people are drawn to good people too. I'm a big believer in that too. And the more, because you surround yourself with a negative person, you're going to become negative. You're going to become that person, and you get away from it and you surround yourself with good people, you're going to be good. It's hands down. You are who you surround yourself with. And the power of this tool of podcasting and reaching out to successful people, and connecting with them and making that connection too, and building that long-term relationship with them, like you said, is priceless, like I've said too. And it's just, you meet a lot of good people, and you are spot on 100%. And you kind of realize this, and it opens up your eyes that there are a lot more good people out there than people think. And you don't really notice it, like you said. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, that you originally don't really notice it until but there is, and it's a great thing too. So
and you know what, I want to give people just an example. For instance, with my podcast, like we were talking about how it's been able to grow grow the way it has, right? I used to have, depending on the individual, right, I used to have trouble actually getting some high profile people, I guess you could say, or people who are like pretty known in their industry, right? But now it's gotten a lot easier. And it's just been word of mouth and organic growth. So I think it comes down to, like, people have been on the podcast and they're just kind of like, wow, that was a great experience. I love what his mission is about, what he's trying to add value. Automatically, they're introducing me to other people who would be a great fit for the podcast without me even asking.
yeah.
And that's huge, right? Because again, like, I know it's not a sell, but it's kind of like selling when you're trying to prospect a guest, right? So again, we just spoke about this, right? Like the more value you add and the more authentic you could be, the less you have to sell. And for me, it's the less I have to prospect for guests. So that's just like one example. Again, people, I mean, I'm sure that's how you are, Bill. Like, for instance, like, I know you're an amazing individual. Like, why wouldn't I want to introduce another friend to you? Like, I'm just that type of person who likes to put two good people together. And if you could be that good person, like I said, you can establish an amazing network, an amazing community. If you're about that, if you're about being a good person and just being of value and just trying to service the world.
Yeah, I highly agree, man. That was awesome. So spot on too. With that being said too, so real quick, the parables is blown up in such a short period of time. And I mean, I'm going to probably, this is where my note taking begins too. How did you do this, and how are you standing out from the thousands of other podcasts out there. I mean, you're top 100 now. You're in over 45 countries. I mean, and it's been a short period of time. I think you're on what, episode 55, something like that, 56. You probably
Yeah,
recorded more than you know, but I think
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, and that's pretty awesome too to see that, and congrats too. So just explain, and how did you get the parables to where it is today?
Yeah. So I think it's a result of a few things. So one is the fact that I've been pretty authentic with it, and the fact that I knew again what I wanted from it, what I want for it, and what I wanted from it, and I stuck to it. Meaning that again, because when it comes to something like this, when it comes to a business, right? Kind of everyone's doing the same thing, and I
Mm-hmm.
always try to think to myself, how can I make mine different? Like I'm not gonna lie, of course, the parables was motivated by another podcast, and I'm gonna shout it out. It was a short story long by Drama. Similar concept where he brings on a very amazing guest, but it's very laid back conversation, kind of like mine, right? But for me, I wanted to stand out a little different in the fact of the way I approach it. Because one, not only I consider myself just kind of like a regular person. I'm not no like famous person, right? I'm not like a celebrity or anything like that. I'm just what I consider just like a normal middle class citizen, right? And what I've noticed, at least for me, because I have guests, is that everybody's interviewing the same entrepreneur, the same high profile person. So for me, like one thing that I do differently is I like to bring on all walks of life. Like I said, from the high profile entrepreneur who's in the public eye with a gazillion followers, who's an author, to a local person in Eastvale who's doing an impactful thing in his community. In fact, I'm going to give you an example. In a couple of weeks, I have a police officer who is doing some incredible work in the community, in that he's been on the news lately, where he is trying to bridge that gap again with the public and the law enforcement, the police force, trying to bridge that gap, because clearly there's a disconnect, right,
Mm-hmm.
with the law enforcement and society based off what you see on the media and things like that. To me, that is super impactful, what he's trying to do with the community. There's obviously problems on both sides, but again, I'm trying to bring people who I feel need to tell their story.
It's awesome.
And yeah, people who I feel are being overlooked. And to give you another example, I had a kid who has a chronic illness disease, but he was training for the U.S. Paralympic snowboarding team, right?
Awesome, man.
Not a lot of followers, but to give him the platform to be a voice for other people out there who are suffering from medical diseases, and that touched me too, because I'm in the medical field, right? So just things like that. I've always tried to see myself of how I can be different. I think also, again, we just touched about this not too long ago, about being authentic, and the fact that I treat people who come on my podcast. I treat my podcast in my studio, for those who are kind of who are watching and kind of see the studio behind me. Is I treat this place like a restaurant. When they come in, when somebody comes in here, because most of all my guests, it's in person. I treat this place like a restaurant where they leave here with a full-blown experience, and they love the concept. They love how professional it is. They love the experience, to the fact that they want to refer me to other people who'd be a great fit for this podcast. So I do everything I can to make sure that, they have the best experience of, the best podcast experience. Because then from there, it's just basically referrals at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think lastly, I'd have to is just social media. I am constantly on there promoting episodes, trying to find ways to be a little innovative. It's funny that you asked this question, because going into 2020, I have some big goals as far as social media promotion videos. Again, like, even though podcasting is a little trendy, but still premature, just kind of like how I said, how people are kind of always bringing the same entrepreneurs, like, I mean, like, if everyone's interviewing the same entrepreneur, like, everyone knows their story. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I
So
agree.
it's kind of like redundant. And to give everybody a prime example of this, some of my best feedback and my best downloads and my best views on YouTube have came from actually people who are not so in the public eye, like the
Just
people who
normal
are
people, yeah.
overlooked. And that totally disproved that whole concept of, for people who think like, oh, I got to get a high, a public eye or a celebrity on my podcast, so I could get more views and more eyes on it. That is totally wrong. Like, don't get me wrong, that may help, but I think when you build your foundation within your community, when you get the locals to listen to you, and like I was talking about how I give people shirts who listen. I even have these little air fresheners. I swear it's like the most smartest marketing tactic. I have these little air fresheners that have Parables podcast by Ejay Cruz, and you could see it on everyone's car who listens to it. I give it to them for free. It's just those little things, man. I'm willing to do what I think other people aren't willing to do, to market it as best as you could, whether that comes from people coming here through organic, referrals versus to social media. Again, I'm promoting nonstop to the merchandise, like things like that. So I'm always trying to find innovative ways to get the word out there, because again, like, it's not going to get out there itself. If I have a mission to reach everybody in the world and to be of value and be of impact, I have to put in the work. That's really what it is.
No, yeah, and that's awesome, man, because I mean, people do want to hear about normal people, hands down. And most people just, because I mean, with celebrities, stuff like that, we see it every day, and then especially with regular podcast interviews, like some of these, bigger names in the podcasting industry, they all interview the same person, and it's repetitive. It really is. I mean, you hear their stories, you hear the same things over and over, but with you having different people on telling their stories and how they got to where they are and what they're doing and how they're impacting people too, that's what's huge. And I mean, it's the same with me interviewing people in my industry, all around the country, and that have had success in what they're doing or are on the pathway to success. It's huge because people want to hear about it. People want to learn. I mean, let's use realtors, for example. There's a ton of people that get into real estate. They don't know what to do. How about, if I have a guy on that went through the trials of real estate and then said how exactly he got to be a top producing agent, I mean, you're going to want to listen to it versus, that typical real estate show. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That typical real estate show, how to become a realtor, it's just, that's all that's out there, or how to build a house, or, how to do this. I'll watch a YouTube video if I want to learn how to on a house building tactics. So, it's about helping people too, but it's the normal thing, having in you sticking to your concept. That's what's awesome too. So good for you. And I can see it's just going to keep blowing up for sure. So so let's dive into you personally. You build an amazing podcast and a brand that continues to grow every single day. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we all need to apply to our own business or our own lives that can help us personally grow?
Man, that's an incredible question. I love these questions, man, because I always feel like when I get on a podcast, I start to learn new things about myself too, and where my mindset's at too, right? You know what? I think it's just, I hate to just kind of repeat it, but what I will say is to get you, not only being consistent, right? Because for instance, with podcasting, you have to be very, very consistent. If you I even had a guy who I helped guide with this podcast, and then he kind of stopped for a little bit. And I told him, I said, dude, like, there should be no reason why you can't knock out at least 2 episodes a month. That's every other week. You know what I mean? So I would have to say definitely the consistency, for sure. No matter what it is you're trying to attain, whether that's a personal goal, whether that's something in your business, you just have to stay consistent and keep going for it, regardless of how many failures, and regardless of how many the challenges, the speed bumps that you're going to endure. You got to keep going for it. Mm-hmm. I will say the other thing is to definitely to get your hands dirty. I mean, again, like with podcasting, for instance, I don't come from this world. I still don't understand everything. Until this day, like, I know there's so many features in a couple of my equipment that I'm probably not tapping into that may produce better quality. I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Yeah. But
so much to learn.
Yeah. But again, I'm being resourceful. And second, I am getting my hands dirty because, again, at least for me, and I know for you, Bill, like we do all of this by ourselves.
Yeah.
I know other podcasters who have full blown teams, which is amazing, and I admire that and I envy it. I would love to have the team, but now that I know what it takes to operate a podcast, or I'm calling my business because it will be, I know what it takes. Now I know what the expectations and the standards that I want for the future of my business, right? I know when I start outsourcing, like for instance, my editing, I know what I want and what I don't want. I know what aligns with my vision and the values and the standards of my podcast and the theme of it. So now I have direction, and it only adds to my vision of what I have for all of this. So I think that's another one. Again, it's just getting your hands dirty. Because I mean, sometimes I kind of feel like it's kind of like it's kind of, it could go both ways. Sometimes I feel like people are trying to cheat the system, where, like, I don't know, they might buy a coaching program, or they might buy this just to kind of skip all the hard stuff. And I get it. Like, I endorse getting mentors, doing coaching, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be coming out with some coaching stuff for podcasting too. But the fact of the matter is, I think like there comes a fine line where you got to get your hands dirty. And I know, Bill, I know for sure you get your hands dirty with all the stuff you do. For sure, you do the stuff that other people in your profession will not be willing to do. But I think you have to understand from the ground up what it entails. So again, when you start to grow your vision in your business, you know the standards and the expectations you want for it. So, yeah, dude, I think that's really it, man. And again, just building relationships. Everyone I bring onto my podcast, I selectively choose. And for me, I'm in a place right now where when I cross paths with somebody, I want to grow with them. I want to help contribute to them. So it's not just like, hey, what's up? Like, hi. And then like, oh, I pay you for this services. No, I'm in a place of trying to add value to people's lives because, again, I come from a nursing background, man. I've seen death. I've seen what it does to families. I've been that nurse that's I was the last person that patients were to see, even like, right when they passed, they didn't have no family, no friends. I know what regret is because that's all my patients who've passed on my watch talk about, and to know that some of these people passed and they didn't like reconcile some relationships, whether that was friends, brothers, sisters, whoever it may be. To me, I'm all about relationships. I'm all about growing, and I'm all about that positive energy that's radiating, like I said. So I think that expands both personally as who I am, but I know I want to incorporate that in my business because I know how powerful it is.
Yeah, I mean that's an incredible answer. Like, and I could have not said it better myself. That's amazing, man. Just, I mean, with the thing about getting your hands dirty too. I mean, you have to, no matter in what you choose to do, business wise, podcasting, anything, learn it, absorb it, study it. Go about. I mean, with me, I always talk about my construction background. I grew up in it since I was a little kid. I had to work. I always did. And I've never had anything handed to me. That's why my old man was, but he always made me dig the ditch. If I wanted something, I had to work for it, but that made me learn, and get better in the field I'm in my profession today. I mean, same with real estate stuff. Like, I post about it. I'm the one, I'm doing changing electrical for people. I'm patching walls. I'm doing grout. I fixed a faucet for a guy the other day, and it's just going above and beyond too. And I constantly preach about this. And no matter what you do, go above and beyond. Because most people just want to just coast. That's the
Get
thing,
by.
man.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, let me work the 9 to 5, get by, get home, and sit on a couch and watch TV and drink. I mean, it's just coasting. They don't there's so much you can do to get better and better every single day. And I think, like we talked about, that might be our problem. We're constantly, you're probably in the same way. I'm constantly thinking, like, my mind doesn't stop of what can I do to become better at what I do, and help more people, but also, maybe I should be doing this way, or maybe I should be going about this way, or maybe I should do this podcast this way. It's just constantly running through our minds. But and it's going to that next level, like you just said, man. So that was an awesome answer, for sure.
Yeah.
too. So, let's go into, most people ask about your past, and you know, I want to. We got into that a little bit in the beginning. So, the question I want to know is, what are your plans for the future? Whether it's business, life, where will we see EJ Cruz in the future? Who will you
Yeah,
be?
yeah. That's also an interesting question. It's great. It's funny because and I spoke about this too not too long ago. Is the fact that I used to think I needed to know the answers to that like right away, right? By like what it is, like your short term goal, long term goal, how you're gonna get there, by what time, like the money needed to do it, all that good stuff. And I just feel like my life is moving at such a fast pace because of everything that's happening in regards to the podcast, again, the relationships I built, the opportunities that are coming my way, that I kind of don't know. Like that's the honest truth. But as far as where I'm trying to head, trying to go, and as far as like my vision, again, my goal is to make this podcast one of the top listened to podcasts in the world because again, I want to impact and bring value to the world. Again, I want to follow that my passion, which is again like I want to be involved with different projects, whether that's in real estate, whether that's in the food industry, whether that's into apparel, whatever it may be. If it excites me and I could contribute to it, I want to be this force of nature when I'm in it, man. Like that guy, like, oh crap, that's EJ Cruz right there. He does this, he does that, he does a little bit of this, he does it all. Like I want to just be involved with lots of different projects that have that means something. That's doing something good for the community. That's making an impact in the world. It could come in any different industry. Um, Again, I want to be a beacon of light, kind of like what my podcast is. I'm getting into speaking right now. I've been doing a little engagements. I want to inspire the next generation, and I want to help people get onto podcasting too. Again, I see what it's doing for me. I see what it's doing for you, Bill. It's just such a powerful platform. It's the perfect time to get in. I'm always trying to lend my help as best as I could, and I know what it's like. I mean, like I told you with my story. My 6th, 7th year into my profession, I started to be complacent. I started to feel like I didn't have passion or no drive, and I want to kind of be that prime example for everybody who feels lost, who's maybe not happy with their job, that's not the end, that you can make a choice and pursue your passion and turn that into a career if you're willing to put in the work and put in the effort. And I want to be that prime example because I am currently doing that now because like I said, I'm still a registered nurse, but I want to be able to be that prime example for everybody. Like for instance, a couple of days ago I spoke at a university to some college kids, and it was just great for them to. I could tell they resonated with my story in the sense that they didn't know kind of like maybe like where they were headed or what their passion or what they're going to pursue, but to know that there's plenty of opportunity there. It just depends on how you approach it, right? And again, what we talked about, whether that's through podcasting, whether that's just through networking, whether that's being a good person, right? So man, to sum it all up, I'm just trying to conquer the world, man. That's all it is. you know?
That's
And I'm trying to conquer the world with you, man.
yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah, definitely. No, I love that answer, man. That's great because it is, a lot of people don't know what to do, and you bringing up the college example too. I mean, coming out of college, a lot of people they're lost, and I mean people in general can be lost and not know what to do, and like you're a prime example of you can do anything that you want, and just the right dedication and the right consistency, and constantly keep moving towards that goal and that overall outcome. I mean, big things can happen, and you're at the beginning, and how much you've grown too, just being as early as you are. It's crazy, man. That's awesome too. Great answer on that one. So last question, I always ask it, to all my construction and real estate people, but I'll ask it too. We'll switch it around a little bit. What exactly do people need to look for when listening to a podcast, and why should they choose Ejay Cruz, host of the Parables podcast, as their podcast of choice?
Oh man, so that's like two questions right there. What should they look for? What should they look for when listening to a podcast? Right?
And why should they choose the Parables as their podcast of choice?
Okay, so I think the first one is obviously you should listen to a podcast. What to look for in a podcast? Obviously, a podcast that brings value. I mean, I think it's fine that there's a lot of podcasts out there in the form of entertainment, comedy, and things like that. But I mean, I think podcasting is such a powerful platform that it is silly to not take podcasting in the form of almost like education, in the form of adding value to your life and to you moving forward. I think it's silly if you're not using it, if you're only using it just for entertainment. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways you could in the form of entertainment. You could go to movies, you could watch Netflix, you could do all that other stuff. But podcasting, like you could do that too. You could do that in the form of education on those, but I think podcasting specifically has been such a huge vessel for like education, for wisdom, for learning, for learning all these different things, to meeting people, like I said. So I think when you're looking for it, whatever it is you're trying to do in your life, whatever that may be, and you're listening to a podcast, just make sure you align with it and it adds value to you. It's pretty simple. I mean, I'm not going to listen to something that's like ridiculous. Like I feel like I'm kind of like moving backwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just personally for me. Other people may find podcasting entertainment but very valuable to them. Who knows? Why you should listen to the Parables podcast? Well, I'm gonna it's a
sales pitch.
Yeah, sales pitch, man. You're gonna probably be like, man, this guy's sales tactics suck. Why you should listen to the Parables podcast? One is, I think I bring a very unique perspective in regards to how you consume some of these wisdoms, these knowledge, these morals, these lessons, these perspectives, these insights, these experiences. Again, I bring all walks of life. So whether you can really thrive off somebody whose incredible story, who's now super successful, whether you thrive off their wisdom or knowledge or their story, versus somebody maybe you really resonate with, maybe somebody who's in the same boat as you. Like for instance, with me, if people resonate with me who is still working to try to get out of his 9-to-5 job and trying to make it big and trying to be make an impact. I think I bring all walks of life, and I think I bring that sense of like you can relate for sure, no matter for sure. Like the feedback I get is that a lot of people love that they're able to relate in some shape or form, even if it's not somebody they could relate to in some way, whether that's how I ask the questions or whether how the conversations lead to, they're able to relate. And I think it's fun, man. I think I bring my really silly, goofy humor to it sometimes. I try to like do it without interrupting so much. So my guess. So I think it's fun too. So you kind of get both worlds. You get like this very inspirational kind of like inspirational, positive vibes to it, and then you kind of just get this like really able to relate, see my goofy side of it. I think you get best of both worlds, I guess you could say. So please listen to the Parables podcast, which, by the way, you can find on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all that good stuff.
There you go. Awesome, man. Great answer. I'm sold.
You're sold? All right, baby.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been awesome. So much great information, too. Last thing, where can people connect with you and find you?
Yeah, best way to contact me is probably through social media. My Instagram handle is it's Ejay Cruz. That's ITSEJAYCRUZ. You can also check out my website, www.ejcruz.com. I'm on all social media platforms. I even just hopped on TikTok because I don't know where that's headed, but apparently that's a new thing. So I'm everywhere, but social media via Instagram is probably the best way to get in contact with me.
EJ, man, I appreciate it. This has been awesome, man. Like I said, so much great information too on podcasting, the importance. I hope everybody that is listening goes and starts a podcast or goes and gets on some kind of social media. It's a must do in any business that you're in. So I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you, everybody.